Hi, welcome to the zoo, and we're your hosts, Caitlin.
And Josh Zaniga.
So, this episode is going to be a little bit more somber, just with what's been going on in our lives and especially my immediate family and personal life. I really felt like we should talk about what happened because I would love to have this episode to look back on and remember just happy times as well when it comes to my dad. So, this episode is a trigger warning, I guess, that we are going to be talking about death. And it is going to be a little bit, I'm sure, hard for some people to listen to, but I'm going to be as respectful and obviously keep a lot to myself as well. But I just wanted this to kind of be an episode to tribute for my dad who just recently passed away. So I'm going to try not to cry through the whole thing and stay as calm as I can because my dad was an incredible person. And it's a huge, huge loss for my family and especially for me because I was really close with him. And it really just feels not real, that all of this happened in such a short amount of time. Maybe I'll have you, Josh, start and talk about, I guess, your experience with what happened in the last week or so because
Okay.
you were there.
Holly came into town and we were all going to church together.
My sister. Yeah.
Yep. And we all were just at church in sacrament meeting. Noah's being crazy. We all try to keep the kids together. Noelle's sitting on your dad's lap. Everything seems like it's going okay. We go home and your dad's driving us home. I'm like having a conversation with him about knives because he loves knives. I was thinking about getting him a knife for his birthday that's coming up. I was trying to figure out what kind he would like. And we settled kind of on him talking to me about Damascus steel knives. But anyways, we get back to your parents' apartment and your dad drops us off by the entryway before he goes and parks the car because it's a little bit of a walk. And he lets us out. I go into your parents' home and then a couple minutes pass by and then your mom walks in with this guy that's holding your dad up. And your dad looks super pale and really kind of clammy and just I guess he didn't look clammy. He just looked pale. And I came over as he was setting him down on the bed. Your mom just said that he was feeling sick. He's feeling kind of dizzy. I go over there. They put him on the bed.
And he had already thrown up, right?
He threw up at the parking lot at your parents' apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. He threw up. Your mom found him. He threw up.
Okay.
And she grabbed that guy to help bring him in.
Okay.
I think that the plan was just to let him chill and relax on the bed. But I was touching his hands because I was worried. And they felt cold and clammy, and he was just super pale, and he was kind of slouched over on the edge of the bed. And I just told your mom, we need to take him to the hospital right now. At the back of my head, I honestly
did you feel that prompting, or did you just feel like he looked really bad and you just thought we should take him? Probably both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I also had this doubt in the back of my head, Josh, you're making a bigger deal out of this than you need to. I start immediately undressing your dad, get his church pants off, his suit off, his white shirt off. And I get him into his basketball shorts that he likes, the ones that he's had forever, and a t-shirt. And then I put on his Nike shoes so he's a little bit more comfortable. And all this happens in the place of about 2.5 minutes. Steve, your brother-in-law, comes home, sees what's happening in the bedroom, and helps me get underneath. We both get up underneath your dad, and we start walking him out.
Yeah.
Your mom goes and gets the car, brings it around to the north side of the building where we always come in, and we bring your dad there, get him up into the car, which was an effort because he was pretty dead weight. He wasn't able to really support himself. I don't think I could have gotten him to the car if it wasn't for Steve. But we go to the nearest hospital. They're doing scans. Your dad is lucid, but he's not totally there. He's in pain. And so he's not talking a lot. He's asking him questions. He asks for water because he's super thirsty, and they tell him they can't give him any. And they're doing oxygen tests, checking to see, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's an EKG. They realize that your dad had a heart attack, but they don't know where the blockage or the damages are. So they immediately send him over to this other hospital, or tell us they're going to send him to this other hospital that's nearby that specializes in heart care.
Yeah.
Where they have stuff that's robust enough to see where the blockages are. They take him in an ambulance over there, and we go back home, get some stuff that we need. We need to get your mom's, because for some reason when this happened, both your parents lost their phone, and couldn't find their wallet at the time. So it was like horrible timing in that way.
Yeah.
So we went home, got that stuff, and then we went over to the hospital, and your dad was immediately put into surgery where he had 4 stents put in. The doctor, when he came out and talked to us, told us that he'd never seen somebody come into a hospital still alive with how blocked your dad's heart was.
Yeah.
And I mean, your dad was overweight, but he didn't look that bad out of shape.
No.
Like
Yeah.
Like we had no idea that this was happening or coming. But then your dad, he was awake after the surgery. He was fairly lucid, but he was in pain, a lot of pain. And it felt like a lot of the strength within him kind of left, and he was just kind of hanging on by threads.
Yeah.
But he was fighting. Your dad was fighting hard to stay.
Yeah.
Over this time period, our family is just getting news that's kind of all over the place from various doctors. They tell us he's not going to make it. And they tell us that he is going to make it and that there's a really good chance. They tell us that it's probably
a roller coaster.
He's probably not going to make it. And then they tell us, oh, it's okay. It's going to work out. Then we come and your dad gets a blessing from the stake patriarch that says everything's going to work out the way that it should, and that everything's going to be okay. We interpret that to think that your dad's going to get better, but your dad doesn't get better. And he had an oxygen mask on, so it was kind of hard to hear him. But for a small window of time, he was able to take it off and have a conversation with a couple of us. I'll let you kind of take over from there.
And so the reason why I wasn't there when all this happened is because I was trying to prepare for Noah's birthday party the next day. And so we took 2 cars after church, and I was going to print some things out at FedEx. And so that's where I was. And it ended up being like, for some reason, my mom's phone got put in my purse. So I had my mom's phone the whole time I was gone. Anyway, I'm getting these phone calls and I'm thinking, you're telling me, you're giving me the updates, and I'm thinking, okay, like this is really serious. But I also was thinking, because my dad had a stroke, I think it was 2012, so 12 years ago. And I was thinking in my mind, like, there's no way that he couldn't make it, because I just felt like with the stroke, like exactly what you said, there was so much fight in him. It was kind of a roller coaster of emotions too, though. I remember when he had a stroke, we went into the hospital and the doctor right away said, your dad is one of the sickest patients in this hospital. There's a high chance he's not going to make it. And at that point, he was 50 years old, right? I mean, I think about that. And so it was really scary. I just was, had so much hope, obviously, that I was thinking he's going to pull through this. My dad's a fighter. But once you said they're moving him to another hospital, I was thinking I have to go see my dad, because I don't know truly like what's going to go down. And so I remember getting to the hospital. Steve, my brother-in-law, and Holly went in first to talk to him for a little bit. And then we went in to talk to him, and he had the oxygen mask on for a bit. And I had hope because they had put the stents in his heart, and they were saying that he was urinating, and there were like signs that he was going to be okay because he was fighting. And so I was like, okay. And so I remember holding his hand, and trying to talk to him, even though it was hard to hear him. I was asking him questions and making sure he was okay. And I remember him saying to me, I'm just so happy that you're here. And I just, like was cherishing and loving that we were holding hands, because I just love to hold my dad's hand. And so, yeah, I was thinking, okay, he's fighting, there's a chance. But then the vitals started kind of going down. They decided to take the mask off for a little bit, because he said he was having a really hard time breathing, because I believe they had put a tube into his throat. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember Josh was getting a sponge kind of and helping my dad, and just kind of, because he still hadn't drank anything at this point. Right.
No,
and so,
we kept asking, and they gave us like this little squeegee thing, or like a swab.
Yeah.
So we were swabbing his mouth with water.
Yeah. And so we kept doing that, trying to make him more comfortable. I could tell he had a lot of anxiety, and they had ended up giving him medicine for anxiety that was calming him down. But I remember him saying, I feel like I have to pee, but I can't pee. But even though he was peeing, it was really weird. He just had all of these weird sensations, and I could tell he was just super uncomfortable. And it made me really sad seeing him like that, of course, but at the same time,
he was very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah. At the same time, I was like, oh, come on, Dad, like you can do this, And so I think at that point, I decided I was going to stay the night with my dad, and you were going to go back to Noah and take care of him, because Noah was with
because your dad was stable at the time.
Yeah, my dad was stable at the time. And so you had left. Noah was with my cousin. who so graciously was watching him, you went and picked him up. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to stay the night. I'm going to stay the night with my dad. And my mom luckily stayed because things went downhill and the vitals weren't looking great. And so they told me that they were going to put my dad on life support. And once they said those two words, I was thinking, doesn't sound great. I mean, I don't know. Like, you just hear the word life support. I didn't know what that was going to look like after they had said that. And so luckily my mom stayed, and they kind of shoot us out of the room though. Like, I could tell things weren't looking great. So in that time, they told us to go into the waiting room. My dad's heart stopped, I think 3 different times. I just could tell when I was talking to the doctor when we finally came back in. I was like, that is not normal, right? That many times that his heart stopped. And she was like, no. Like, I could just tell in her face the status, or the state, sorry, of my dad after the things that were happening. I was so scared to see where his heart would be, his brain would be. Like, it's like, yes, they keep saving my dad, but at what cost? Like, what is he going to be like after that? Right. And so he's still on life support. We go in, I couldn't even really look at him because I was just like, he looks horrible. I don't think he looks good.
He doesn't look like himself.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, there's still hope though. Maybe they put us back into the waiting room, and the doctor ends up coming out, and, you just get the absolute worst news of your life. I just remember looking at Steve, and I was like, it's bad news, right? Like, what they were saying, it was so hard for me to compute it in my head and understand. And I just remember looking at Steve like, he's gonna be gone. He's not gonna make it. I think I swore, honestly. I was just so sad and so shocked because it happened so fast. We're at church, everything's seemingly good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're all just doing the normal things that we do on Sundays usually. And I was just so grateful that we had a little bit more time with my dad, just because you had the feeling to take him to the hospital and you followed that. And even though he ended up passing away later, in the middle of the night, I'm just so grateful that I had a little bit more time with him, even though it wasn't an ideal situation. I didn't love seeing my dad like that. And I know he was in pain, but it's given me a lot of peace just knowing how much of a fighter my dad is and how strong he is, that if he needed to go, he would go, and I think a lot of people that I've talked to have said that just who my dad is and the qualities that he possesses. I believe one of my cousins on my Stewart side had said this, that my dad is needed somewhere else, and his qualities and him as a person is needed somewhere else. And I think it's been really hard for me to accept that, just because I obviously want my dad here and I don't want him to be somewhere else, and it's hard to even comprehend to this day that he's not here anymore. And I think it's going to take a long time, to actually believe that. But I think my dad, like I said, I think he would have been able to fight harder if he was supposed to stay. It's just been a whirlwind, honestly. It's hard to even put my thoughts into words. I think I kind of want to talk about the funeral, just because we've had so much love and support, my family, throughout all of this. Honestly, hell. Yeah, honestly, this has been hell and horrible, and just the absolute worst thing that I could have ever imagined for my family and for my life. Because, you just picture your parents, that they're going to be with you and they're going to be here and they're going to see your kids grow up. It's just what you think, I guess. Obviously, nobody wants to think that your parents are going to be gone, even though we all know eventually we're going to be leaving this life. I'm just so grateful for all of the people who have come and shown support, and we've been able to see throughout all of this. And my dad's funeral service, but really it was joyous because there were so many kind people who were able to talk about their experiences and their memories with my dad. And it truly did make my heart so happy, being able to hear some of the stories and some of the ways that my dad was able to touch so many people. And I think I was talking to a lady that was in my mom's ward, and she was saying that that's one reason why she loves funerals, is because she's able to learn from somebody's life and take the pieces that she can apply, and really try to better herself. I think that is a good way to look at it, that we can learn and we can keep my dad's memory alive through the way that we live, but also still talking about him. And this is why I really wanted to do this episode, is because I always want to remember the good, parts of my dad and just focus on that in such a difficult and devastating time as well. Josh and I met in 2020, and I'm just so grateful that he was able to meet my dad, have really great conversations with my dad and really see who my dad is and the essence of why I love him so much. And so it's been really cool for me to think about, in a way, I do feel like my dad lives on through you too, just because I think that you and my dad have similar qualities. And I think that's, a big reason why I love you so much, but also I love him. And it was just so cool to see your guys' relationship and how much you guys had in common and how, I don't know, just the conversations that you guys had were really, really cool. So I guess I just ask you, like, how are you touched by my dad, or how did you feel about my dad?
I feel like in a lot of ways, your dad filled a lot of holes that I needed filled when I was a teenage boy. Your dad spoke to that version of me. There's just certain things that I had in common with your dad that I don't have in common with my dad. And that doesn't mean that my dad didn't
It doesn't take away.
It doesn't take away anything from my dad.
Yeah.
But your dad was a father figure to me. He and I related on a lot of different topics, working with family for a long time and how hard that is and the lessons that are learned from doing that and what to do, what not to do. Those are lessons that are so invaluable that you can't put money on that. And it's in my life, a lot of times I feel like I'm alone and that people don't understand what it is I'm trying to carry or trying to do. I don't mean that in like a selfish way, like nobody understands me, but it's just lonely.
Yeah.
It's just lonely. But your dad had been there before. He'd had his ups and his downs. And one of the things I admire most about your dad is that through his life of his ups and his downs, he never stopped betting on himself, and he never stopped trying. He always kept trying to better himself, better his situation. And your dad won big a lot of the time. He won big a lot of the time. He had his big downs.
Yeah.
But there's so much to be said for the character of somebody that never stops, because your dad never stopped.
Yeah, till the very end.
Yeah, literally until the very end when he tried door knocking with me.
Yeah.
Your dad, for me, was a righteous example of masculinity and what it means to be a father and a provider. He and my dad both have that in common, where they would provide without complaint, and without really any thought to their own self-preservation. They just loved their families, or my dad loves his family. Your dad.
I was going to say your dad and my dad have that in common, where I feel like they're really selfless.
Yeah. They put their families before themselves. So your dad was putting you guys in nice clothes, and he had the same pair of basketball shorts for 20 years. I mean, that's part of just like his style. He kind of dressed like Adam Sandler in some ways,
He had good style. He had good style too, but
yeah, he did. He could be casual, but he could also dress it up. The point I'm trying to make is that he would put others before him.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the thing that I love the most about your dad is that he had this side of him that was really unique. The side that loved practical pranks. And we're not talking like innocent prank. Like, I mean, they were kind of innocent.
But some of them were intense.
But some of them, like, he just had this side of him where he was a pranker. Like, he would get you. And
supposedly he gets that from my grandpa Harold, his dad, and their side of the family, the Stewarts. So
yeah, they would just pull pranks on each other.
Yeah.
And they were like hardcore pranks. And it was unrelenting. That was a side of him that was unrelenting. And then there's also this side of him that is firmly rooted in the gospel and is a disciple of Christ, but he lives on the edge in some ways. Like your dad loved Harleys. It's not what you think of when you think of a Utah LDS guy. He loved Harleys. He went to Sturgis and he loved powerlifting. Your dad was just a very vibrant person, and he was so non-judgmental that he could reach out and connect with people that might not feel like they could connect with somebody of our faith.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think, you got to see so much of my dad. And I just think it's so cool that in such a short time, you were able to see all of those things. Because I actually think you would have believed and known all of those things before you even heard all the things that you heard at the funeral.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
1000%. I already knew.
That's just the way he lived.
That is the way that he lived.
Yeah. And he was authentic to that. And it was never to put on a show. It was never to please anyone. It was just truly deep down. I think my dad was just a genuine
You know,
good person.
yeah, and you know, like nobody's perfect, but
Yeah, of course. No,
your dad died with his boots on, walking in the right direction.
for sure.
I just admire him so much, and I don't know. I've cried more this past week than I have probably in the past like 20 years of my
Yeah,
life.
it's definitely hit you really hard too. And that's what's been so hard for us because luckily your parents came out to help us because I don't really know what we would have done. We've needed a lot of support because not only do we have a crazy toddler, I'm also pregnant. And because of the relationship that you had with my dad, it's just you never know how things are going to hit you, right? I mean, I don't think either of us have probably felt this deep of grief because we haven't really had a death, somebody that close to us, you know?
Yeah,
And so it's like you really don't know how you're going to feel until it happens. And I think it was just because it was so sudden, it was, I mean, it's still so hard to process. And I think it's going to take a long time for us to process this. Time heals all, right? And also, I think the knowledge that we truly believe that my dad's in a better place and that we will see him again.
yeah. I will say that it definitely puts a different perspective on the plan of salvation. It feels more real right now than it ever has to me. You know,
And
it's
if
like
anybody doesn't know what the plan of salvation is, I think that
ask your
maybe
local LDS missionaries.
yeah, they can help you on that. But really like truly just believing in eternal families and that I believe that God, like I said, needed him for another work, even though it doesn't make sense to us right now, you know. So I actually was the one who put together my father's obituary. A lot of people contributed to this and I kind of just pieced it all together. But I just wanted to read it to remember this and remember my dad's legacy in his life. So my dad's full name is Bradley J. Stewart. Bradley J. Stewart, son of Harold and Erlene Stewart, husband of 45 beautiful years to Linda Crystal Stewart. Born November 30th, 1961 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Passed away peacefully with family by his side at IHC Hospital on July 1st, 2024. Father to four children, Holly Stewart Caton, Stephen Caton is her husband, Christine Stewart Thomas, Brandon Thomas is her husband, Caitlin Stewart Zuniga, Joshua Zuniga is my husband, and Zachary David Stewart. Brother to five siblings, Val Stewart, Dale Stewart, Michael Stewart, Pamela Stewart Driscoll, and Tim Stewart. One of his greatest joys was being a grandfather to 10 grandchildren: London, Sawyer, Scarlett, Anderson, Noel, Luke, Liam, Leo, Chloe, and Noah. One grandchild is on the way, and Brad truly loved his adopted grandchildren, Adair and Coco Christensen. And just a side note, those are the two children that my mom has raised and nannied. Some of Brad's notable achievements include Regional Western High School Golf Champion of Nevada, involved with the family development of Star Valley Ranch in Thane, Wyoming, attending and meeting his bride, Linda, at Brigham Young University. Brad and Linda were sealed for time and all eternity in the Salt Lake, Utah LDS Temple. He was a real estate agent and broker. He had his commercial driver's license and pilot's license. He loved riding motorcycles with his friends and was a Harley Davidson enthusiast. Served as president of Zija International, president of a food storage company called Go Foods, host of a nationally syndicated radio show called Financially Fit, served in many different callings in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, including elders quorum president many times, young men's leader, and ward mission leader. He truly gave his all to everything he took on in this lifetime. Brad had an uncanny ability to build and lift others. Brad's loving, selfless, and empathetic characteristics made everyone feel loved and that they were the most important person in the room. He was a bright presence and a light to whoever he would come across. If you knew him, you loved him. Brad had a love for self betterment, family, Christ's gospel, and business. His focus was always on the big rocks. Brad was a man of integrity. He loved his family and he adored his forever bride. He was always reaching out to family and friends, sending quotes, kind and uplifting messages. A few quotes from others. Brad made me better when I was with him. Brad always made me feel special. He was one of the good guys, and he was a legend. He always tried to better himself, and he worked hard at doing that till the very end. This loss is deeply felt by so many, and you will forever be in our hearts, Bradley J. We will continue to try to emulate some of the beautiful qualities that Brad possessed and know his memory will forever live on. I hope that paints a picture, a little bit about my dad and about his life. And, just attending his funeral and his memorial service, I was just truly touched by everything that was said, and it felt very, very happy,
It
and
did.
for such a tragic sudden thing, I did feel just so much love, and my mom's choir that she's been in for 20 plus years, the Sally by the Way Chorale, they were able to sing two beautiful musical numbers. One was called Look to the Day, and the other one was God Be With You Till We Meet Again. And that really was so sweet to just have them sing because, my dad was so supportive with my mom's choir. And it was actually really cool because one of my mom's very last choir concerts, I was able to go to with my dad and watch my mom sing. And that was really special. It was just so cool that the chorale showed up for my mom in that way. My mom had talked to, my Aunt Jill, her sister, who was able to sing with her daughter Grace.
They did great.
And then my uncle Daryl was playing on the guitar. So anyway, the music was beautiful and the sentiments were amazing. We all kind of said, all the siblings and spouses said our own little deal about how we feel about my dad. And I think a lot of people were touched, and they, told me that they felt the spirit, and they felt that we were able to emulate, who my dad was and what he meant to us. And so that made me really happy. And, we've had moments where it's been really hard to like have fun, I guess, throughout this because it was the 4th of July, pretty close afterwards. And we still watched, a fireworks show on top of my parents' rooftop. And it was so cool and so beautiful, how close we were to the fireworks, and we were able to listen to some music while they were playing, and it really felt like our own personal fireworks show. And I feel like we've been able to have a lot of these happy moments with my family that we haven't been able to see for a long time, which I know my dad would be happy for, and I feel like my dad has been with us through a lot of this, and wanting us to feel like he's in a better place and he's also happy and that we can all be together. But I'd be lying to say that it isn't so hard because like even my mom said after the funeral, we had a luncheon that was put on by her ward, which was really good. And they, made brisket, which was really cool because my dad loved brisket. And one of my brother-in-laws talked about how Brandon, he was saying that, my dad taught him how to grill a steak. And it was just really cool to, eat the brisket and remember him. But my mom was saying the whole time at the luncheon, she was just looking around, like thinking my dad was going to come in, and come sit by her. That's been the hardest thing for me, just thinking about my mom, and we're leaving the hospital. And she said to me, it's so weird. I've been married to your dad for 45 years and I'm leaving the hospital like without him, and I don't know. I'm just so proud of my parents and like the legacy that they've built, the family that they've built, and that they stayed together and supported each other through everything. I can't imagine how my mom must be feeling, because I feel that right now, where obviously the world is going to continue to go forward. You have to just keep living your life and doing the things that you have to do. Because not only are we parents, like we have our own lives and everybody has struggles and things that they're going through. But I didn't realize how hard it would be for me to keep going, to live without my dad, and just almost think like, why isn't the world stopping? Like, why doesn't everybody know that my dad's gone? Like, it's almost like you want everybody to know. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's been just really hard for me to keep going because I just can't imagine a life without him. I don't know. It's just a new normal. Like I said, I feel like I'm going to have to really work through some things with my therapist, probably just continue to, like I said, focus on the good.
I would say that some of my favorite things about your dad are the stories that we've learned about him, many of which he told us himself. Your dad is a really, really good storyteller. As the kids now would say it, your dad has a lot of lore to him. He lived a super, super interesting childhood where your great grandpa was like this business genius, and they sold this family. They built this family company up to hundreds of millions of dollars and sold it for hundreds of millions of dollars, which back in the day, insane amount of money.
Which was Star Valley Ranch.
So that no, they took the money and then invested in open
You're
Star Valley
talking
Ranch.
about, okay, sorry. I thought you were talking, because I was like,
No, I'm talking about Nevada Ready Mix.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's where it all started with
Yeah.
your great grandpa and
They
his brothers.
they haven't sold Star Valley Ranch, I
No,
don't
they
think.
have not
Yeah.
sold Star Valley Ranch, but
Okay.
your grandpa, your great grandpa was a visionary,
Mm-hmm.
and he could see. He basically created like a town out of nothing. Your dad was there for the building of it with his siblings. Your dad was so interesting. He learned something very early in his life. He learned the value of hard work, the value of having fun, and the connection that there's a connection between effort and money that I want to help Noah learn. Your dad understood that, and he learned that. He was very entrepreneurial. Like he would do side jobs with his brothers or his cousins, and he made thousands of dollars as a teenager, like an early teenager. Your dad was just a baller in a lot of different ways. Not only was he that, but he was athletic. He was good looking. I loved hearing the story about how he met your mom. Basically what would happen, they like convinced all these ranches to sell. They bought the land, and then your grandpa started building there, but there was a lot of empty plots. Part of the business model was to sell these plots of land and help build cabins on these things.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, I don't know how big it is, but it's pretty large. It's pretty large.
Star Valley Ranch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a
I
couple
can't
miles
remember how
across.
many acres, but yeah.
They would hire cute girls as interns to come and like stand next to like the ranch and hold signs.
Or work in the office, I think, too.
Yeah,
and
work in
answer phones.
in the office. But your great grandpa had this idea that if there was a herd of buffalo near the entrance, that people would stop to look at them, and he was right. And he would put the girls next to the buffalo with signs. They would convince them to come and like have like a chuck wagon meal, you know, where they would put on like this big feast for tons of people, and then they would
they had a
plots of land,
and they had a restaurant, and they had a golf course. They still do.
Yeah, it's all still there.
Yeah.
It's all still there. But your mom was one of those girls that like got people to come in and up into the ranch so they could hear a sales pitch after getting a free lunch
to buy
land.
Yes, to buy land.
Buy land.
Mm-hmm.
The land over there is gorgeous. Like I personally would love to have something there at some point in the future. Your dad was a part of this, being surrounded by business geniuses, something that I haven't been able to verbalize about what it is that I like so much about the stories behind your great grandfather and your dad and everything in between is that in a lot of ways, the building of a business me,
I was going to say, it's just my grandfather.
Your grandfather and your dad.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, the building of that and with what I've talked about in the past, entrepreneurship is a mirror. It's a mirror in which you can evaluate yourself and build yourself. There's something very spiritual about that. Your grandpa was building his kingdom here on earth and your dad was a part of it. I'd have to imagine it's not that different on the other side when we're all together, that we're building something together as a family that we're sealed to, you know?
Yeah.
There's something super special about building something together as a family, and it's not easy, especially as a family. And your dad would tell us stories about the ups and downs of that and how things like that were navigated. And it wasn't always navigated super well, which is why I gained so much value in talking with him about working with family and what that was like. The lessons, the stories, the experiences that your dad grew up having.
You could write a book.
You could write a book or have a movie about it.
Yeah,
your dad had a magical childhood that was full of adventure and increase, seeing something grow and being a part of something growing that was bigger than himself. And that's something that's so special that not very many people can say that they were a part of at that young of an age. And your dad was there for it. Like he loved every aspect of it. And your dad and your great grandfather had a lot in or your grandpa. I don't know why I keep saying great grandfather.
No, you're fine.
Maybe because he's Noah's great grandfather.
Yeah.
They had a lot in common. They just bonded over that. And I see a lot of myself in Noah. I'm not saying I want Noah to be in pest control like I'm in pest control, but I do hope that my son can learn the value and the feeling of building something that's yours that you can be proud of, and not in like a selfish way, but building something that takes care of others, provides opportunity, and requires the best of you in a lot of different ways. That was one of my favorite things about hearing your dad talk about it.
Yeah, it's just so cool. Even though, we didn't see the Stewart side as often and my dad ended up, not working with the ranch forever, we still would go up to the ranch like almost every summer growing up. And Star Valley will always be special to my family. I just remember, I think I did show you, I thought I did, but when they were redoing the cement where the restaurant is, I remember my mom and my, you know, my grandpa, I think my grandpa was there too, Stewart, and my dad, I ended up putting he let me put my footprint into the cement
Mhm.
and write my name, you know, Caitlin, into the cement while it was drying. And it's still there to this day, you know. And I remember going up to the restaurant up at Star Valley Ranch and just seeing that and thinking, like, just felt like I was a part of it in some way too. And even though I didn't do anything, like, it just feels like my heritage, you know, that I'm so proud of my Stewart's, like Stewart's side, that what they've been able to do and build is so cool. And just so many fun memories. You know, we would go bumper boat on the bumper boats and with my cousins and go onto the boats and hit each other. Just swimming up there. My dad would take me into like his brother's office and get me popcorn that they had popping in the office. Oh, it's hard to talk about. Just so many fun memories. Like you said, they would have, and I think they still do. They have these really big feasts and stuff like that they'll have in the barn, and they'll have speakers come and people will dance. They have a community still up there that lives up there, and they have golf courses that are absolutely gorgeous, and the sunsets are incredible.
And they have like an airstrip where they can fly planes.
Yep. Yep. And we would go watch like my grandpa and my dad fly planes, little planes and bigger planes and all these different planes. And
you know, you've made it in life when flying is a hobby, because that's not an easy hobby to get into.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just so many good memories up at Star Valley. And I'm gonna miss, like, I guess my dad just not being there anymore for those memories. I hope that we continue to try and go up as much as we can, because I think, like you said, eventually how cool it would be if we ended up finding something there that we could have for our own family. And because I actually have some friends even that have cabins up there, and even people that aren't connected to the Stewarts. Like, a lot of people just like it, you know. And Wyoming is so gorgeous, you know, and I think there's ugly parts of every state, right? And there's ugly parts of Wyoming, but that area is gorgeous. And so is Jackson Hole. And I remember going up to Jackson Hole a lot, and we would go, like, they did a guys trip up there, but I've done river rafting down the Snake River, four-wheeling. Last time we were up there, we rode horses through,
it was amazing,
through a river. Anyways, so I feel special that I was able to have some good memories up there and hopefully continue to do that. And I think that'll be cool to take Noah up there too eventually. He was there, you know, when he turned 2, we had his birthday party up there, which was super fun with some of my Stewart cousins. We can continue to show Noah that legacy and talk about these stories, and
it's
hopefully
a part of who he is.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like a lot of who Noah is comes from that heritage, from that bloodline. And I just know that there's personality traits that he's inherited from you, from your dad to his dad.
I agree. And actually, I wanted to share this tidbit. So we had previously talked about the number 7-11 being really special to us because of Noah's birthday. And so July 11th is also my grandpa Stewart Harold's birthday. And it was kind of crazy because I was in the hospital for almost, I think it was 3 days, right, when I had Noah. And it was my first baby. I'm sure we'll go into this another time, but it was intense. Like, I was just laboring for a long time. I think it ended up being 50 hours. And then I ended up having to have emergency C-section. And it really felt like Noah was supposed to be born on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I found out that Harold, my grandpa's birthday, was that same day, and then I also think my cousin Shane, his birthday is that day too, it felt even more special. And it does feel like, you said, that legacy, even though you didn't get to meet Harold, like, I know you would have loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that he's looking over us and helping us, just like my dad's going to do, you know, and like, just continue to be our angel, you know. And I really believe that, because I think we've kind of touched on this before, and I think a lot of people know about patriarchal blessings, at least people that are LDS, but it's a blessing that can help you guide you throughout your life. And I'll just share just a tiny piece of mine, but like, it talks about angels guiding me throughout my life, like leading me and guiding me and helping me, you know. And it's, that line has come up in my mind a lot, because I feel like the times where I haven't been able to keep going or lift myself on my own, and it doesn't make sense, like, how I'm able to do these things. And I've had this conversation with my mom, like, how are we doing what we're doing, right? Like, how are we still standing and going through the things that we're going through? And I just believe that our ancestors are looking out for us, and we're going to be able to feel my dad in ways that we maybe couldn't have, or he couldn't have helped us on earth. That's just something that I actually loved when I served my mission in Cambodia, because they actually have a holiday called like Ancestors Day. That's something that I resonated a lot with, though, is how much they talked about their ancestors and people that have passed on, and they care about their ancestors and they believe that they help them. And I just know that there's a lot of religions that feel that way, and I just think it's really cool to honor them, right? But to talk about your ancestors, to believe that they're helping you, and that gives me a lot of peace, honestly, because I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to navigate it, but I know that we are all strong, and obviously we're stronger with others helping us, right? And so should I share just some of the memories that people wrote?
Share some of the memories.
Okay. So this is my cousin, Rebecca Stewart, my dad's niece, who wrote this. She said, Uncle Brad was the best of uncles. I always felt loved, protected, and accepted by him. He made things fun. He had a huge influence on all his nieces and nephews and led by example. He will be so missed. I am filled with a sense of how needed he is on the other side. He has a great work to do. He is preparing for the Savior's return. I believe he was called back for a very specific assignment. Uncle Brad has a unique combination of gifts, and the Lord will use them greatly. He is so missed, and I look forward to when we can be together as a family again. And then she also said, I admired his love for his family. He also put Aunt Linda and the kids first and was a great protector of them. So this is another story that I wanted to share from Brad's cousin, my dad's cousin, Monty and Anne. So they said, Dear Linda and family, this is Anne and Monty Stewart writing to share our thoughts and feelings at this tender time. Because Anne just had knee replacement surgery and we are in Star Valley, we will not be able to attend the memorial service, although we will watch on Zoom. So we particularly wanted to share this message now. We know what a beautiful family you and Brad brought forth and loved. We have admired you and been inspired by your example throughout the years. A great blessing of such a family is that you will stay close and united in all the years to come, even though Brad is no longer with you here. He will surely be watching over and planning for your welfare, Linda, and for that, all of your posterity. Plus, a moment's reflection about Brad makes obvious that he is going to be a really good and effective missionary in the great world of spirits. Monty in particular is grateful for the memories of Brad, especially of the summer after his mission in 1971 when he worked for Uncle Harold in the beginning of Star Valley Ranch. And Brad, although very young, was right there with his dad in that great adventure. Monty remembers coming into the old farmhouse there late one night and seeing Harold and Brad asleep together on the couch, absolutely zonked after another long, hard day of work on that great big project. And of course, there are memories of being on Brad's golf team a couple of times at the family reunion tournaments, and being on Brad's team meant winning. 2 days ago, Monty was golfing with two grandsons at Afton Valley View Golf Course and standing on the 12th tee, back then the third tee, telling them how Bradley drove the green on that long par four. The apostles have taught that no righteous man is taken before his time, although Brad's death was so sudden, so unexpected, and such a relatively young age. We feel the sweet assurance that that the teaching does apply to him. Temple marriage and a lifetime of devoted service to family, friends, neighbors, and church bring a light and a hope and a peace into these days of unavoidable grief and pain. Over time, the grief and pain will subside, while the light and hope and peace will endure forever. We thank God for Bradley. You are all in our prayers. Love, Monty and Anne.
Super nice.
Yeah, that was very sweet. And I loved hearing those memories about golf and Star Valley. And it was just really cool to read that. So this is from my cousin, Amelia Stewart. She said, I have so many fun memories of Uncle Brad and his funny pranks. Like when we had the Stewart reunion and during the golf championship, Brad kept flicking water on Grandpa Stewart and he thought it was raining and kept looking up at the sky. Brad was laughing so hard we were surprised that Grandpa wasn't figuring it out. Also, Brad always seemed genuinely interested in everyone, and I always felt like he cared when he would ask me about me and my family. He was a funny, charismatic, genuine, all-around fun uncle. Love you, Uncle Brad. You will be remembered. So those are just a few thoughts about, and memories that were shared on my dad's memorial page that we had posted. But that's really the consensus that I got, that my dad truly touched so many lives. And it's really crazy to see it all put into one meeting, right? And just to kind of get a flashback almost of all these moments and all these small touches that my dad was able to do. I just feel like my dad always would say how proud he was of me and his kids. And I think to this day, he would be so proud of all of us. But I guess at this time, I also just want to tell my dad how proud I am of him, just for being not only a great father and a loving father, and for loving my mom and respecting my mom, but also to just be able to look at my dad's life and be so touched that you want to live better. It really does put life into perspective, and how every single day we can make a difference if we choose to, and every single day we can choose to find the silver lining in life. We can be positive and we can choose to serve when we're able to. And the things and the trials that we go through, I know that we will be blessed for those things. And we also can kind of relate to others. I never wanted to join the club of, not even a club, I don't even know what you would call it, of having a parent pass away at, like, was just said, a relatively young age. Because my brother's 20, like, is he 26 or 27? I don't know. He's in his late 20s. And I mean, we both still feel relatively young, right? We're in our early 30s. And I guess I never thought I would lose my dad at this age, and I think it is a little bit harder for me just because, not that it's harder than anyone else. I'm just saying it's harder than I could have imagined, because my older sisters, I'm 11 years apart from one and 9 years apart from the other. And I just told them, you guys are so lucky that you had all of these moments with your children with my dad, and that's something that I'm still trying to mourn and having a really hard time grasping, that like you said, we're going to have to tell Noah about my dad, and we're going to keep his memory alive, and we're going to show him photos and videos. But the fact that my son and now our future daughter isn't going to be able to experience my dad right now on earth, that's kind of what I said in the memorial service, that truly one of the sweetest times in my life has been able to see my parents interact with our child. And the fact that we're not going to have any more memories together is really hard. And I think it hits even harder now that I'm pregnant, because he won't be able to meet my little girl, our little girl. But it's given me a lot of peace talking to people who have, reassured me and us that my dad is in heaven right now with her and looking after her. And I believe that she's a special soul, and that she's going to come down to our family. And I know that my dad's going to continue to look after all of us and our family and our children in a different capacity. But it's just accepting that capacity is going to look a little bit different. Yeah, my dad's just always been somebody that I could talk to about everything. And I think a lot of people felt that way, that my dad, like you said, was non-judgmental. You could talk to him about anything. He would give great advice. He would actually genuinely care about you, and he'd be interested in what you were talking about. And that's a common theme that people said, that like Brad didn't bring up himself a lot, that he was listening to you and caring about you and reaching out, sending text messages, calling people. And he really put in a lot of effort for that many people to feel that way. Like, that is a lot of effort, and it makes me want to be better and reach out to more people and make people feel loved and cared about. But he also had this such a funny side too. He wasn't so serious all the time. And
No, he wasn't.
And that he made people feel happy and light and laugh. And his smile was so cute and sweet. And I've thought about this too. My dad chose to be an organ donor, and they ended up using, I think, part of his skin and his eyes. I can't remember what else, but my dad had really piercing, beautiful blue eyes. And people had talked about that like he would light up a room, and I just think about, it's just cool to think about maybe the person that was able to receive those eyes, and almost like my dad will live on in that way too, and it's kind of weird to think about it, but also kind of cool. And my dad was cremated because that's what he wanted. And I was talking to my sisters and my mom, and I don't really know exactly where that's going to take us and what they're going to do with the cremation. But I do think it would be really cool if part of it we were able to go up to Star Valley Ranch and maybe put some of him up there, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. Obviously, that's just a thought I had, and I'll never forget all the memories that we had together. And that's kind of what I shared at the memorial service. I shared about my love of concerts, I think, came from my dad. We would go to concerts together. Holly, my sister, also feels this way, but we would go and get massages together, and I would massage my dad because it meant a lot to him and he loved it. And I realized, wow, that's like another part of me that's why I love massages. And even though he didn't really love Disneyland as much as my mom, he would always come, and he would always spend money on something that he knew meant a lot to my mom. And we made so many memories at Disneyland together. The trips that we were able to take together, that my dad was able to provide. And I just had such an amazing childhood because of him. We went to Hawaii together and we went on cruises and all these things. And I feel like the adventurous side of me and some of the trips that I was able to take with him and my family made me love the world, I guess, and traveling and being open to seeing new things. And I do think I get that from him. And it's just really cool, to realize the things that I love were a big part of my dad. I really just look back on so much, and I just have so much gratitude in my heart for the things that my dad sacrificed. Because just like you talked about, Josh, like me buying new clothes or me getting these things that, my dad kind of put himself on the back burner, and he just did everything he could to make sure that his kids had a wonderful life. Nothing could ever, I guess, just really convey how grateful I am for what my dad did for me. And I promise, Dad, that I will continue to live my best life, and I will love, and I will serve, and I will try to never let your memory die. Yeah, I just love you, and I miss you, and I know I'm going to miss you until the day I die. I just have to focus on living and doing my best for my own family. And I know that's what my dad would want, is for me to just rely on my savior and to rely on each other. And I know that this is just going to make us stronger and it's going to make us better people. I'm just trying to really reflect right now, too. I guess I would just say to anyone who loses a family member, anyone close to them, to just reflect and really think about how this can change you in the best way possible. Just don't be afraid to take your parents to the doctor even when you feel like maybe they don't need to. Or I don't know, I guess I just want people to learn from this and just be proactive, try to live your best life. I know everything, this is my own opinion, but I believe everything happens for a reason. But we just have to be proactive, and try to be healthy. Like I said, just learn from this, learn from the people that have passed on, and how you can take what they did and apply it into your own life. And I'm just so grateful. And there's just so much love and so much gratitude in my heart, even though this is just such a difficult time for my family. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for all the prayers and all the thoughts and all the donations and just kindness and food. And it's been so overwhelming. But if anyone deserves it, it's my mom and my dad, because they really were and are some of the best people and giving people that I know. So just thank you.
Yeah, it's been hard. And I feel like this was kind of a sad episode with some happiness in there. But I think the biggest takeaway is that your dad was an amazing person. And the positives that we can take away from this is how grateful we are to believe what we believe and to have a firm foundation in believing that it's true, that families can be together forever, that your dad is with his dad, and that your dad is with our little girl before she comes down, that they're talking and that he's teaching her and talking and like giving her advice, and just remembering that we're eternal beings, we're eternal spirits. There's something eternal and divine about us that's been around forever, that's just having a very mortal and temporary experience. And your dad is back now. We'll be with him again because of the things that we know, the things that we believe in, and the covenants that we've made. Our family will be together forever. And that same adventure that your dad had with his dad in building something, we'll get to experience that all together, building something over there. I look forward to that day, and I hope that we can live our lives in a way that will make that possible and be a good example to our son and help others around us and just do honor to him. And we promise this next week's episode will be a little bit more uplifting, but yep.
But at the same time, I hope you guys do feel like inspired, I guess, to be your best self, learn from your experiences, and just like I said, reflect. And just thanks again for all the support and all the love. This episode means a lot to me, just like I said, because it feels like a journal that we can look back on someday and just be happy to reminisce and think about my dad. So thank you for listening. And next week we'll be happier for sure. But I think that's all we have for now. And goodbye.